Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of our Flexbox CSS mini-series. Now in this episode we're going to be talking about using margin and the flex property in CSS. Now first of all, margin is used to separate Flexbox items, meaning for example up until now we've had like the four links, and let me go ahead and actually just pull up this, or actually no, I'll just explain it. So up until now we've had the four links on the navbar, and we can move them all to the left, we can move them all to the right and stuff, but there's no way to actually separate it so that there's one on the left and three on the right. And we use margin to achieve that. So we're going to be going over how to do that. And then we're going to be using the flex property to dynamically resize some of our elements, which is basically making it so that when you make the website bigger, some elements can actually get bigger along with the website. Kind of like when we had our episode on responsive styling in my introduction to web development series. It's somewhat similar to that. So we're going to go ahead and open up our index.html and start up our live server. And we will get what we left off on the last episode. Now I'm going to make a few quick changes. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this height here to make this like an actual navbar. So that's not huge like that. And then I'm going to set our justify content, which if you remember, justify content aligns our items along the main axis, which if the flex direction is row, like it is by default, the main axis is horizontal. So flex end will set it all to the right, and flex start will set it all to the left. So that's what we're going to start off with. And then align item center is fine. That's basically going to center all of these vertically. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and start off with this code. Pretty simple. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly show you how to use margin, to separate Flexbox items. So let's just say we want to have home on the left side and then these three on the right side. What we're going to do is we're going to, for example, one way we could do is give this an ID of left nav element, or we could even just give it an ID of left or something. And then here in our CSS, we're going to select left by doing a hash left. And then we're going to set margin dash right colon and then auto. And before I save, just for a quick explanation, is when you have a Flexbox layout like this, where it's display flex, if you give one of the children, which is one of these LIs, because this is the container and then these are the items slash children, if you give one of the children an automatic margin, the margin will automatically grow as much as it can in order to, before it can't anymore. So for example, if we have this left item and we give it a margin right of auto, well, this left item is the home, it's right here. If we give it a margin right of auto, the margin to the right of this element will grow as much as it can until all of these three hit the right side. So if I save this, to explain what I mean, is notice now the home pushes all three all the way to the right. And that is how you use margin to separate. Say we wanted to instead have the about. So we have home and about on the left and then contact and testimonials on the right. Well, all we have to do is remove the ID here, and then we just give this the ID of left, and boom, we have home and about, contact and testimonials. And if we right click and hit inspect, we'll get a better idea of what is happening. So remember, margin is essentially a spacing between different elements. And if we come here to the about, like look, there's just this orange around home, there's this orange around contact, orange around testimonial, but when we scroll over about, the orange goes really far to the right. And that's because of this margin right colon auto right here. That margin to the right will grow as much as it can until it can't anymore. And that is Flexbox, Flexbox margin. So that's just a new behavior for margin. And notice this is actually kind of new, is margin dash right. You can specify the margin on one specific direction. You can do margin dash top, margin dash bottom, and let me just put a semicolon here so you get the suggestions. Margin dash left, or you can just do margin. And then if you just do margin, you can actually put spaces like, and then this is basically, this number is margin top, this one is right, this one is bottom, and this one is left. That's another way to do it. Or you can just specify margin right to be auto, which will automatically do that. So that is basically how you use margin to position Flexbox elements. Now, another thing you can do is you can actually use the flex property to dynamically resize elements. And what I mean by that can be best illustrated by, well, first I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this spacing here. And then I'm going to add a new li, another item, a fifth one. And we're going to put inside this li, it will not be text, it'll be a link, an A, and then let's just say click me, or cool button. And if I save this, notice it says cool button. And then remember, for an A, for a link, to give it an actual place where it goes, you give it an href. And for example, if I put in google.com on here, if I click on this button, it'll take me to google.com. But one quick way to test is I can put a hash in here. And what this does is this just takes me to the top of the web page. So it won't actually change my page. It'll stay on this website, but I know that the button is working. So that's what we're going to do. And then we are going to go ahead and play around with this. So for this li here, we're going to give it an ID of nav-button, just so we can select this li right here. And here in our style, we're going to create a selector for nav-button. And then what we're also going to do is we're just going to remove this left because it's clutter. We're not using it anymore. So this nav-button selector will grab this li right here. And then we can do a couple things. Let's first give it a different styling so that we can distinguish it from these other 4 buttons. So we want this to actually be a button. So first we're going to say text decoration, none. And what that's going to do, if you notice here, there's this little underline underneath cool button. If I save this, oh, whoops, my bad. We actually, okay, so yeah, this is my bad. So the A, this A right here, which is the link, is actually what has the underline. So in order to get rid of the underline, we have to, remember, use the child, like this is nav, and then the UL is a child of nav. So we have to say nav, nav button, and then we have to say the child, which is an A. And what this means is it'll say element with an ID of nav button, and then an A inside it. And that's what this is. This element is an li with an ID of nav button, and then it has an A inside it. So that's what this selector is for, and then here we can put text decoration, none. And that will get rid of the underline, and we can remove it here. But actually for the button itself, we want to make it a little bit bigger. So let's just give it a height of 50 pixels, for example. And then let's give it a width of 50 pixels too. Or no, let's make that bigger, like 150 pixels. So boom. Now we have these 4, and then we have this big button. And a quick thing to note here is this align item center is vertically centering everything. If I removed it, everything here would stretch. And that's kind of confusing. So yeah. Align item center, it just is vertically centering all my stuff, and you need that. Don't forget it. Otherwise, it won't look the same. So yeah, this is what we're looking at so far. We have our 4 regular elements, and then we have this new button. And then in order to actually get this cool button text to be clickable across the entire thing, the A, we want to actually set its height to 100%. And then we can set its width to 100% first, and then the next step would be to, we could make this li right here another flex layout, and that might be a tiny bit confusing, but so notice, this whole container is a flex layout, and it has these 4 items, and then it has this button. But you can actually have a flex layout inside this button here, so that we can center this text, and this is probably a little bit much, so you know what, I'm not going to use a flex layout. I'm just going to simply do a text align center, and just to at least center, and then a vertical align. I don't know if I can actually middle. Yeah, no, okay, that's not going to work in this situation. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and just keep it like this. So far, we can only click on the text. We can't actually click on the entire background, and that's pretty much fine. I'm not going to change it for now, but this is a button, just imagine, in that sense. And then for the button itself, we're going to give it some rounded corners, just to make the effect a little bit better. We're going to give it a border dash radius of maybe 5 pixels, maybe a little bit more, 10 pixels. Okay, so now it has some curved corners, and so we know this is a little bit different from all of the other elements. Now, notice as this website grows, again, there's just open space that happens here. But what if we didn't want open space? What if we wanted this button to grow alongside the as the website grew? Well, that's where a property called flex comes into play right here. And the way we can do this is for the nav button, which is this li right here, we can actually give it a property saying flex:1. And what this is going to do is this, as you can already see, as the website gets smaller, it will shrink. And as the website gets bigger, it will grow. And notice all 4 of these other items are staying the same size because they don't have this flex:1. Only this li right here has a flex:1, which is allowing it to grow. And what happens if we give it to several elements? Well, let's go ahead and say, let's create a class selector, flex:1. So if I give any element a flex class, then it'll add that. So let's just say I gave home also class equals flex. Then notice that home actually also flexes alongside the button, and they're both the same size at any given time. So that's just a little thing to note out, but we're only going to have to flex this button right here. So I'm going to remove this class. But yeah, so that's what flex does, is it grows an element as the screen gets bigger or smaller. And that was actually pretty much all I had planned for this video. Now, I know this seems a little bit simplistic, or maybe it's even like quite a bit of new information, but the essence of what you've learned in this video is using margin to push elements to the left or right, but then also using this flex property to make an element resize and get bigger as the website grows itself, as like the screen gets bigger. Now, there are actually more ways you can take this, and there's a whole deep dive into just this flex that I will be doing in a future episode, because it's very interesting the way it all works. There are a bunch of modifications you can make to this to make these elements grow and shrink in all sorts of different ways that we haven't explored yet even. So yeah, I'm excited to get to those at a future date. So if you want to see these videos as they come out in this series, go ahead and check out the playlist linked in the description where I'm uploading daily. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for notifications whenever I post new videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.